In August 1944, Paris, France, a German general made a decision in seconds, one that would save an entire city and countless lives. He had no idea that this moment would return to him decades afterward, shaping history and the way the world remembered war. The streets of Paris, which had witnessed centuries of art, philosophy, and culture, hung in an uneasy silence, as if the city itself knew that its fate rested in the hands of one man. The summer of 1944 brought devastation across Europe like never before. Allied forces had stormed Normandy, unleashing a tide of soldiers, tanks, and artillery toward Germany. The Nazi Empire, once vast and seemingly invincible, was now crumbling on all fronts. At the heart of Europe, Paris, a city renowned for its beauty, culture, and history, stood directly in the path of destruction. Its bridges, its cathedrals, its cobbled streets, each one carried centuries of memory, human achievement, and civilization itself. Hitler, enraged by the liberation of France's countryside and the Parisian resistance uprising, issued a chilling order: if the city could not be held, destroy it completely. Bridges were to be blown, landmarks reduced to rubble, fuel depots ignited, and monuments erased from the map. In Berlin, the Führer's rage overrode reason, leaving the generals to execute orders that bordered on madness. For soldiers and civilians alike, the situation was precarious. German forces were exhausted, the Allies pressing closer every day, and resistance fighters emboldened by hope. The city teetered on the edge of annihilation. One wrong move, one order carried out too faithfully, and Paris, the city of light, would be no more. Dietrich Hugo Hermann von Choltitz was born in 1894, in a Prussian military family. From childhood, discipline, honor, and absolute loyalty to the chain of command shaped him. Military service was not a choice, it was an expectation. When World War I erupted, von Choltitz joined the army as a young lieutenant. He faced the horrors of both the Eastern and Western fronts, trench warfare, relentless artillery, and the unimaginable suffering of men on both sides. By the end of the war, he had survived battles that left tens of thousands dead, earning decorations and a reputation for competence and calm under pressure. In the 1930s, Germany changed. Hitler rose to power, and the Wehrmacht was reorganized. Von Choltitz, pragmatic and professional, did not embrace the Nazi ideology, but he remained loyal to the military institution. By 1944, he had risen to General of Infantry, a man tempered by war, skilled in strategy, and untested in moral defiance. He was a soldier of duty, trained to follow orders without hesitation. Yet, the commands that awaited him in Paris would test the very limits of his conscience. On August 7, 1944, von Choltitz arrived in Paris as the newly appointed military governor. The city was trembling. Resistance fighters had taken control of key districts. Barricades rose across streets. German troops were scattered, exhausted, demoralized, and afraid. The air was thick with tension, and the first echoes of gunfire and rebellion could be heard from the avenues. Hitler's orders were absolute: if Paris could not be held, destroy it entirely. The bridges spanning the Seine were to be blown. The Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Notre Dame, railway stations, factories, and even fuel depots were to be reduced to rubble. As von Choltitz walked through the streets, he saw civilians carrying on amid chaos. Mothers clutched children. Shopkeepers opened their doors. Lovers walked along boulevards as if the world had not ended around them. A storm of conflict began to grow within him: obedience versus humanity, duty versus conscience. The orders were clear, but their consequences were unimaginable. Could a soldier commit such destruction and still call himself human? Days passed, and Berlin's messages grew more urgent. Hitler demanded constant updates on the city's destruction. Von Choltitz faced the unthinkable: obey and erase Paris from history, or defy an order and risk execution. He stood atop a balcony, overlooking the Seine, the bridges arched gracefully beneath him. The sun glinted on Notre Dame's spires. Civilians moved about the streets, seemingly oblivious to the approaching storm. In that moment, he saw not the enemy, but humanity. He realized that destruction would serve no military purpose. It was vengeance masquerading as strategy. Von Choltitz made a slow, deliberate decision. He stalled his engineers. He delayed communications. He opened secret channels with Swedish consul Raoul Nordling, negotiating a ceasefire and a path that would prevent catastrophe. For the first time in his career, obedience yielded to conscience. As German troops pulled back strategically, Paris remained intact. Resistance fighters consolidated control, while civilians watched in disbelief as their city survived the brink of destruction. For von Choltitz, the war continued. He was captured by the Allies and held until 1947, praised quietly for his actions, but forever shadowed by the brutal regime he had served. The memory of that decision stayed with him, a quiet act of courage amid global chaos, a choice that defined not only the man, but the fate of a city. In 1965, journalists Larry Collins and Dominique Lapierre rediscovered von Choltitz's story, publishing Is Paris Burning?, chronicling the city's salvation and the man behind it. The world learned that one soldier's moral courage had saved millions of lives and centuries of cultural heritage. Von Choltitz never sought fame. In interviews before his death in 1966, he reflected, "I received an order to destroy Paris, but I knew such an act would be useless. The military situation was hopeless. To destroy such beauty made no sense." His defiance became a quiet testament. Even in war, humanity can prevail. The war was filled with destruction, hatred, and loss, but stories like this remind us that even in humanity's darkest hours, a single act of courage and compassion can echo for generations. History sometimes remembers the conquerors, but it also remembers those who chose conscience over destruction. If you want more forgotten stories from history's darkest and brightest hours, don't forget to subscribe.